The train left her behind in a cloud of steam and red dust, and Clara Whitmore stood alone on the platform with a single suitcase and a heart, full of promises that had already begun to rot. She had crossed half the country to marry a man she had never met, guided only by neatly written letters that spoke of opportunity, respect, and a fresh beginning in the wide territories of the West. But when she arrived in the small, frontier town of Dry Creek, no one came to claim her. The station master tipped his hat with pity. The townsfolk stared with mild curiosity before returning to their business. By sunset, Clara understood the truth. She had been forgotten. Whether by cruelty, accident, or cowardice, she did not know. The boarding house owner offered her a narrow bed for the night, whispering that sometimes men change their minds when faced with responsibility. Clara lay awake staring at the ceiling beams, humiliation burning in her chest, but beneath it stirred something stronger, determination. She had not survived poverty, hunger, and loneliness back east to crumble now. The West might not want her, but she would carve a place in it anyway. The next morning she took work washing dishes at the saloon, ignoring the sideways glances and murmured jokes about mail-order mistakes. Days turned into weeks. Clara learned the rhythm of the town. Ranchers riding in at dawn, miners passing through at dusk. The constant hum of ambition and hardship tangled together. Yet no letter came, no explanation. Eventually she stopped waiting. One evening, while returning from gathering laundry near the edge of town, she heard a distant gunshot echo through the canyon hills. The sound was followed by the unmistakable thud of a body hitting earth. Every instinct warned her to turn back. Gunfire in the territories rarely meant anything good, but something in her refused to ignore it. Perhaps she knew what it felt like to be left behind and broken. Perhaps she simply could not bear another soul abandoned in the dust. Clara followed the sound into a narrow ravine where twilight pooled in purple shadows. There, half hidden behind scrub brush, lay a cowboy bleeding heavily from his side. His hat had rolled several feet away, revealing dark hair matted with sweat. His horse was gone. A bullet wound stained his shirt deep crimson. For a moment she froze, fear clawing at her throat. Helping him could drag her into trouble. He might be an outlaw. He might die in her arms. But when his eyelids fluttered and she saw not menace but pain, her choice was made. She tore a strip from her petticoat and pressed it firmly against the wound, whispering steady reassurances even as her hands trembled. He drifted in and out of consciousness, unable to answer her questions. The canyon wind howled above them like a warning. It took every ounce of strength she possessed to drag him onto an abandoned supply cart she found near the ravine entrance. Inch by inch, breath by breath, she hauled him back toward her small rented shack at the edge of town, careful to avoid the main road. Gossip traveled faster than wildfire in Dry Creek. She did not want questions. She did not want the sheriff knocking at her door. When she finally managed to pull him inside, exhaustion nearly overcame her. But she forced herself to boil water, clean the wound, and stitch the torn flesh as best she could with trembling fingers and limited knowledge, learned from tending to her sick mother years ago. The cowboy groaned but did not awaken fully. Fever burned through him that night. Clara sat beside his bed, wiping his forehead with a damp cloth, whispering prayers she had not spoken since childhood. Over the next several days, she cared for him in secret. She told the saloon owner she had taken ill, buying herself time. She rationed her small savings to purchase medicine and broth. The man's face slowly lost its ashen hue. When he finally opened his eyes fully, confusion clouded them. "Where?" he rasped. Clara introduced herself simply and explained that she had found him wounded. He studied her with quiet intensity, as if measuring her character in a single glance. "You shouldn't have," he muttered, though there was gratitude beneath the protest. She shrugged lightly. "Someone once left me without help. I suppose I couldn't let that happen to you." He gave his name as Daniel Hayes, offering nothing more. Clara did not press him. In the West, people carried secrets like spare ammunition, necessary for survival. As his strength returned, she noticed the marks of a hard life on his hands, the steady discipline in the way he forced himself to sit upright despite pain. He was no ordinary drifter, yet he never boasted, never demanded. Instead, he listened when she spoke about her journey, about the man who never came. One evening, as golden light spilled through the cracked window, Daniel's jaw tightened when she described the humiliation she endured. "A man who breaks his word breaks himself," he said quietly. There was something personal in his tone. Outside, rumors began to swirl. Riders had been seen searching the outskirts of town, The sheriff questioned locals about a shooting in the canyon, involving rustlers and a ranch foreman. Clara's pulse quickened at the word foreman. She returned home to find Daniel attempting to stand unaided. "You need to leave," he insisted. "Men are looking for me." Fear spiked in her chest, but not for herself. "Are they enemies?" she asked. He hesitated. "Not exactly." The answer puzzled her, but before she could press further, hoofbeats thundered past her shack. Clara helped Daniel to the back door, preparing to guide him into the brush. Yet instead of panic, she saw a strange calm settle over him. He squeezed her hand firmly. "No matter what happens next," he said, "you showed more courage than anyone I've known." Before she could respond, a sharp knock rattled the front door. Clara's heart hammered as she stepped forward to face whatever waited outside, unaware that the wounded man she had sheltered was far more than he appeared, and that her act of quiet bravery was about to change both their lives forever. If this chapter has pulled you into Clara's world, into the dust, danger, and courage of the frontier, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this remind us that even when forgotten by others, we are never without purpose. And Clara's story is only just beginning. The knock at the door was not angry but firm, deliberate. Clara steadied her breath and opened it to reveal 3 well-dressed riders, their coats tailored from fine wool rather than trail-worn canvas. The man at their center removed his hat respectfully. "Ma'am," he began, "we're looking for Mr. Daniel Hayes." Clara felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. She considered denying everything, but something in the man's expression suggested this was no posse hunting a criminal. Before she could answer, Daniel stepped forward from behind her, leaning slightly but standing tall. "That'll be enough, Thomas," he said evenly. The rider's relief was immediate. "Sir, we've been searching everywhere. Word reached the ranch about the ambush." Ranch. The word echoed in Clara's mind. Daniel exhaled slowly, then glanced at her with an unreadable expression. "I'm fine, thanks to Miss Whitmore." Thomas's eyes widened slightly as he regarded Clara, suddenly with far more respect than curiosity. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you've done a great service. Mr. Hayes is the owner of the Hayes Cattle Company, the largest ranch in this territory." The world seemed to go silent. Clara stared at Daniel, searching for deception, but found none. He held her gaze steadily, almost apologetically. "I didn't tell you because I needed you to help me as a man," he said quietly, "not as a title." Heat rushed to her cheeks, not from anger, but from the realization that the quiet, wounded cowboy she had nursed back to life commanded thousands of acres, hundreds of cattle, and the loyalty of dozens of riders. She, the forgotten bride, had unknowingly saved one of the most powerful men in the region. Thomas explained that rustlers had ambushed Daniel during an inspection of the northern boundary. Believing him dead, they had fled. The ranch had been in turmoil, fearing leadership lost. Clara listened as if hearing someone else's story. Daniel turned to her gently. "I owe you my life. And more than that, I owe you honesty." He asked her to come to the ranch, to see it for herself, to decide her future with full knowledge of who he was. The Hayes Ranch was nothing like the dusty outposts Clara knew. Rolling fields stretched endlessly beneath the sky. A grand but sturdy ranch house stood at its heart, surrounded by bustling hands and grazing cattle. As Daniel rode beside her, still recovering, but resolute, she felt both awe and uncertainty. She had been cast aside once by a promise of marriage. Now fate offered her something entirely different. Choice. Over the next weeks, Clara observed Daniel not as a distant magnate, but as a leader. He rose before dawn, worked alongside his men, settled disputes fairly, and carried himself with quiet integrity. Word spread quickly of the woman who had saved him. Instead of ridicule, Clara received gratitude. Yet Daniel did not pressure her. One evening on the ranch porch, as sunset painted the sky in amber fire, he spoke plainly. "When I first saw you in that canyon, I thought I was done for. But you didn't see a ranch owner. You saw a wounded soul. That's rare." His voice softened. "I won't offer you charity or obligation. Only partnership if you want it." Clara's heart warred with memory. She remembered standing alone on that station platform, discarded like an unwanted parcel. But she was not that woman anymore. She had proven her strength, her compassion, her courage. "I don't want to be rescued," she said carefully. "I want to stand beside someone who keeps his word." Daniel nodded once. "Then stand beside me." Their marriage was not born of desperation but respect. Clara brought new ideas to the ranch, improved record-keeping, fair wages for widows who took in mending, a small schoolhouse for workers' children. The Hayes Ranch flourished not merely in size but in spirit. And whenever Clara rode past the canyon where she had first found Daniel, she remembered how close she had come to turning away, how easy it would have been to ignore the gunshot, how different her life would have been. Months later, news reached Dry Creek that the man who had failed to meet his mail order bride had squandered his holdings and left town in disgrace. Clara felt no bitterness, only gratitude that fate had redirected her path. She had arrived forgotten, but she would not leave unnoticed. She had built a future from courage. On the anniversary of that fateful night, Daniel presented her with a deed bearing her name as co-owner of the ranch. "You saved this place the moment you saved me," he said simply. Clara realized then that the greatest wealth was not land or cattle, but the strength to act when others would hesitate. If Clara's journey from abandonment to partnership, from forgotten bride to respected ranch owner, has inspired you, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because here we tell stories that prove destiny can change in a single brave moment. And the next powerful frontier tale is waiting just for you.